Hello students, I am Dr. M. Bhushanam. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope all is well. Today we shall understand another topic under first semester BSc Zoology syllabus, that is reproduction and development in the earthworm species Pheretima posthuma. The objectives of today's study is to understand the process of reproduction and development in the earthworm. The content also includes the reproduction and development in earthworm. Okay. In previous class, we have learned that the earthworms are hermaphrodites or bisexual or monoecious organisms, which means both male and female reproductive systems are present in the same organism. But these male and female gametes of the same organism do not show fertilization. Then how does these earthworms reproduce? It involves two earthworms of the neighboring burrows. Here one of the earthworm donates sperms to another and vice versa process takes place. So is the exchange of male gametes between the two earthworm organisms. Later, these sperms of one of the earthworms are received, is stored and are used to fertilize the eggs of its own. Hence, it is called as cross fertilization. To achieve or facilitate this process, male reproductive gonads matures first and earlier than the female in the earthworm species. And this condition is called as protandrous type, which means proto means here first and androus means male gametes or male reproductive system. So protandrous means male gonads mature first and forms the sperms, later follows the female gonad maturation. At most early morning or dawn time of rainy season, two earthworms of neighboring or adjacent burrows, they merge off of its body and place themselves in the opposite directions as shown in the picture here, such that their ventral surfaces of the two organisms will face each other. Also, the anterior ends pointing in opposite direction. Also, segments of 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 of one of the organism are placed opposite to the clitellum or even the 18th segment of another. In this position, the male genital apertures of each worm lie opposite to the spermatical pores of other organism. I repeat, it is a condition wherein the spermatical apertures of one organism will be opposing with the male genital apertures of another organism. So, this kind of arrangements between the two organisms is first seen, and later they become very closely attached by the help of the papillae structure that are seen on the either sides of the male genital aperture, called as the male genital papillae, one in the one pair in the 17th segment, the other pair in the 19th segment. So here the picture shows how the two earthworms of the opposite burrows face their ventral surfaces towards them, and spermatical pores of one of the earthworm will be facing opposite to the male genital aperture, that is of the 18th segment of another earthworm organism. Now, the male genital apertures are raised and inserted into one of the pairs of the spermatical pores. So, the male genital apertures are inserted into the spermatical pores of another organism, and thereby thereby the sperms are released by one of the organism into the spermatical apertures of the other organism. So, the same phenomenon occurs on the other side with the other organism in a vice versa manner. So, in one side the sperms are received by one of the earthworm, and this earthworm will insert these sperms into the spermatical apertures of the other organism. So, in simultaneously there is exchange of the male gametes between these two organisms, and this mutual exchange of sperms that are seen between two earthworm organisms is called as pseudo copulation. Pseudo copulation. This pseudo copulation will last for an hour of time, during which all the spermatical bags of both the organisms are filled with the sperms, and later on the two worms, after filling these sperms into the spermatical bags, they separate out and gets back to their respective burrows. Till this stage we call the phenomenon as pseudo copulation. So, here is a picture in this slide that depicts how exactly the mutual exchange of our sperms takes place between two earthworm organisms. The next follows the process of cocoon formation and cross fertilization. As we know, clitellum is a girdle around the segments of 14, 15 and 16. It is a reproductive structure having a thickened swollen epidermis, which is highly glandular in nature. Students, remember, cocoon is the part of the earthworm that involves in the formation of clitellum is the part of the earthworm which involves in the formation of cocoon. Otherwise, cocoon gets formed from the region of clitellum in the case of the earthworms. And this clitellum is made up of a glandular epithelium at the time of maturity. So, this glandular epithelium will make the appearance of clitellum as much more thickened ring-like structure on the earthworm's organism. And the glands that are seen in this region are of three types. So, glands are seen in three distinct layers of epidermis in case of clitellum. Number one is unicellular mucous glands. This unicellular mucous glands will produce mucous substance or a slimy substance during the process of copulation. So, higher secretions of mucus will be seen at the region of clitellum during the copulation process. So, for which unicellular mucous glands are involved. Point number 2 is the cocoon secreting glands that secretes the wall of the cocoon. So, cocoon is a sac-like structure, bag-like structure whose cover is produced by this cocoon secreting glands of the clitellum. The third type of glands that are seen in clitellar region is that albuminous glands. These albuminous glands that produces albumin, in which the eggs are deposited in clusters, in groups in the structure of cocoon. So, this is about the importance of 3 types of glands associated with the clitellum region. Students, here the cocoon glands will secrete a membranous girdle around the clitellum. This girdle soon becomes hardened when it is exposed to the air. Now, the albuminous glands will secrete the albumin between the girdle or the clitellum and the body wall. So, remember, first the clitellum will secrete the cocoon gland, cocoon glandular secretion, and this cocoon glandular secretion will becomes hardened, thickened, and it will separate from the clitellum region alone. And later the albumin is thrown into the structure of the cocoon glandular secretion. Now, the earthworm slowly withdraws its body from the girdle by its backward movement till the 13th to 14th segments are reached. So, as what we find in the structure here. So, first the clitellum will secrete the cocoon glandular secretion, that upon exposure to the air becomes hardened. So, it becomes like a cover like structure or thin extra cover which will separate out from the clitellum. Now, into this structure the albumin is thrown by the albuminous glands, and now with this structure of albumin, now the organism slowly moves till the 14th segment of the clitellum is reached. Okay. Now, the female genital aperture, which is seen in the 13th segment, will now starts depositing its eggs into this clitellar girdle. So, into that outer cover where the albumin is secreted, into which the eggs are also thrown or deposited. And later, as the organism moves down, the spermatical pores are reached, and these spermatical pores will throw their sperms into the same structure. Now, what is happening here? Into this outer cover, we find the albuminous secretion, into which these eggs are thrown or deposited, and later the sperms are also deposited. So, in each of these girdle of cocoon, we find the albumin, we find number of eggs, we find number of sperms into it. As the worms move completely out of the cocoon, now the two ends of this ring-like structure of the cocoon girdle will get closed on either side. So, the content will remain inside, and towards the two ends there is closure of the structure of cocoon girdle. So, it appears to be like that of a chocolate cover, okay, candy chocolate which is wrapped in a cover, it is the appearance of a cocoon generally. So, now this stage is called as cocoon stage or oothecal stage. So, formation of cocoon is seen, which we call it as cocoon stage or oothecal stage. So, soon after the pseudo copulation, the next stage is followed is the cocoon stage formation. So, in the picture here, you can find how exactly this structure of cocoon is formed. So, in the first towards the left side, two organisms of earthworms are involved in exchange of the gametes of male, that is sperms. Then after storing the sperms into the spermatical bags, the clitellum starts secreting its outer cover of the cocoon girdle or ootical covering, and slowly it will move backward so that the ova are secreted or eggs are secreted into the girdle of cocoon. Then further movement will bring about the cocoon filling with the sperms. Once if the sperms and eggs are filled, the structure of the ootical cover will get closed at two ends. Okay, it appears to be like that of a pearl structure. So, inside of which you find albumin secretion, we find many number of eggs, we even find many number of sperms in a cocoon. So, till this stage of cocoon formation, we call it as ootical stage or cocoon stage. Now, after the cocoon formation, the process of cross fertilization takes place. Okay. Fertilization or fusion of male and female gametes takes place inside the cocoon, but outside the body of the organism. Generally, a cocoon's shape, color, size, when we look at, cocoons are oval in shape, light yellowish in color, and they are about 1.5 to 2 mm broad, 2.4 mm long. Cocoons are laid during August and October months in damp situations or damp soil. In about 8 to 10 weeks, the embryo hatches from the cocoon as a small tiny earthworm. So, here in the picture we can find the upper diagram showing earthworms with the cocoons, which appears like beads, and down is the structure of cocoon in a magnificent resolution. So, what happens within the cocoon for the sperms and eggs that are packed inside? Initially, male gametes and female gametes undergoes fusion, which we call it as fertilization. So, fertilization takes place between sperms and eggs within the cocoon. So, we find many fertilized eggs formed within the structure of cocoon, but only one embryo gets developed or grows into a tiny earthworm and comes out of the cocoon. So, what happens to the rest of all the fertilized eggs? They are all within the cocoon serve as the nurse cells or nutritive cells for the growing tiny earthworm. Also, the albumin that is seen inside also serves as a nutritive material for the growing earthworm. Students, remember, the fertilization is occurring outside the body of the mother animal, hence it is called external fertilization. So, external fertilization, because fertilization happens, that is fusion of male and female gametes happens outside the body of the mother, but inside the cocoon, hence it is called external fertilization. So, only one zygote gets formed per cocoon structure. Zygote is the fertilized egg which after 2.5 months of time grows into a complete tiny earthworm. During the zygote development into embryo, cleavage takes place, which is holoblastic and unequal, and there is no larval stage in the development of earthworm, hence we call it as direct development. The cleavage here is the mitotic divisions that occurs inside the zygote, which is unequal and holoblastic. Students, remember, unequal means two daughter cells of a zygote are not of the same size and shape. Holoblastic means, holo refers to complete division. Blasto refers to the division to form the cells, daughter cells. So, holoblastic means complete division of cells. Students, remember these two terms here, cleavage is unequal and holoblastic. The next stage to cleavage is blastula, which upon cleavage forms upper small cells called micromeres and lower larger cells called macromeres, along with the cavity called blastocele. So, in the diagram of the first diagram of the left side, upper diagram, zygote is forming cleavage that results in the formation of upper layer of small cells or micromeres, lower layer of larger cells called macromeres, enclosing a space called as blastocele. And this stage is called as blastula stage. Now, micromeres will form the outer layer called ectoderm, and macromeres will form the interior layer called endoderm. Excuse me. The junction between these two cell layers called ectoderm and endoderm at both the sides shows the formation of a group of undividing cells called as mesoblasts. And these mesoblasts are responsible for the formation of a new layer called mesoderm. Thereby a new cavity gets formed called as archenteron, or you can also call it as gastrocele. And the outer or upper ectodermal cells first grows into invagination, forming double layered structure with a new cavity of archenteron, and mesoblast cells will divide to form mesoderm layer in between. Now, when you take a cross section of this stage, you find three germ layers of outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, inner endoderm. Inner endoderm will enclose a cavity called as gastrocele or archenteron cavity, and this stage is called as gastrula stage. So, gastrula stage is demarked by three germ layers along with the archenteron cavity. Now, the new cavity of gastrocele forms the anus and mouth at the opposite ends, and the gastrula stage further grows or divides the cells to form an embryo. So, this embryo grows in its size, which will break open the outer oothecal membrane, and this starts feeding on the albumin present in the cocoon. Mesoderm will form the somites and rest of the body organs. Ectoderm will form the nerve cords and excretory organs. Endoderm will form the gut region, and after the complete development, a tiny or young earthworm is released from cocoon, and a structure related to this you can find here in the picture down, where the cocoon is releasing out one of the tiny earthworm. So, this is about the direct development that takes place in the earthworm. So, young earthworm, when fully gets grown, crawls out of the cocoon in about 2 to 3 weeks of time, which will resemble by all means the structure of an adult except for two important details. Number one, the size. Number two, absence of clitellum. So, size is very tiny, clitellum is absent, such is the structure of a tiny earthworm that comes out. So, this is about the importance of reproduction and development related to the earthworm. Let us understand few of the MCQs related to this particular session. Earthworms are hermaphrodites and reproduce by which of the methods here? Cross fertilization, protandrous type, cocoon formation. All these phenomenon are seen in the developmental process of the earthworm. Hence, answer is D, all of the above. Second question. Dash is the region of the earthworm that involves in the cocoon formation. Which part of the earthworm involves in the cocoon formation? It is clitellum. So, answer is A, clitellum. Copulation commonly takes place during which of the seasons here? It is B, rainy season. The characteristic mating phenomenon that takes place in the earthworm is called pseudo copulation. So, answer is B. In earthworm, what type of cleavage is observed? It is holoblastic and unequal. So, answer is B, holoblastic unequal. In earthworm, mesoderm develops from which of the type of cells here? So, answer is C, mesoblasts. Well, students, the outcome of today's session that we have understood is, we have understood about the concept of reproduction and development in earthworm. References includes the books like Invertebrate Zoology by P.S. Verma and modern textbook Zoology by Kotpal, and even websites like Wikipedia and Britannica.com. These are all few sources of images that I have made use in the preparation of PPT. Thank you all students. Wish you all a very happy day ahead. Please go through the video. If you find any difficulties, please post them in the comment box or to my personal WhatsApp number. Thank you all.